Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today I am joined with Jonathan Boble, who
that's me.
Is a rulebook. You're a board game rulebook, I think.
I am a rulebook, yes.
Yeah. You right now freelance and as a passion in your own hobby time.
Yes.
Use your history as a special ed teacher.
Yes.
You said you have a master's degree
in education. Yeah.
And you've been applying that to the world of rulebooks. We first got in contact with you, or you got in contact with us, around Horseless Carriage from Splatter Games coming out, because you'd worked alongside some of the designers over there to produce a second alternative version of the rulebook that's a little bit more thematic, has more art assets, and might make some people able to table the game slightly easier than others. And you've also worked with quite a few companies in the industry at this point, right? How many? What are some of the different companies you've done projects for?
Awaken Realms. I actually worked with them to revamp their Great Wall rulebook.
Okay.
Lucky Duck. I've many Capstone games.
Sure.
I mean, worked with Fantasia games.
There's
so many.
We've been pulling games off the shelf downstairs to find your name in the rulebook editor or
I'm looking
proofreader.
here. There's a few just
section. Now, you have not been the lead on every single one of those, but you're working to get to the point where you could actually be a lead rulebook rules editor or lead rulebook kind of writer and designer.
Yeah, and some of those projects I was the full lead, and graphic design too. Some of these I do the full layout as well.
Very cool. So I thought today we would have a conversation from two different perspectives around 5 elements that we each think every single rulebook, all the way down to code names, all the way up to Aeon's Trespass Odyssey. Please rewrite that rulebook for me. You do not.
Did I not message them?
You do not want to take on that project.
I do want that project.
Oh my gosh.
I want it.
No one else. I don't know either way. It's a whole conversation for another time. We thought it'd be fun to talk about 5 different elements that we believe every board game rulebook should have.
Yes.
Elements of design, elements of instruction, whether, I have some things that are about the formatting of them, but we'll see. Leave a comment down below. I want to know 2 important things. First off, I want to know what is the worst rulebook you have ever read. And I might be working on another list video. And 2, I would like to know what are essential for you when you're looking through a rulebook. What are the elements of a rulebook that either make it tableable for you, or you'll put it down to the side and you'll say, I'm going to let someone else in my game group read that because I'm still excited about the game, but my mind's not working on this.
And I'm going to read those comments as well. So if you put those there, I will read them and I will.
You might literally make rulebooks better.
You will.
I'm going to let you start this time because you made me start last time.
All right.
What's your number 1? What's the first element of rulebook design or principle of rulebook design that people should be following?
Well, I think I want to play a game. Okay. I'm here to play games, so I want a rulebook that lets me...
I thought you were going saw on me. Do you want to play a game?
Yeah, so this Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Line, because the element is, let me play quick. So this is essentially, the rulebook element is, how fast can I open this rulebook and start playing it? Can that happen? Do I have to read a whole rulebook before? Now, I know that's not going to be possible for every game. I mean, I guess technically it could be. If you put a lot of time into every game, you could make a tutorial. But
so the challenge would be something like a heavy Euro, like something like Horseless Carriage. How do you get that to the table and allow you to play quick while at the same time being able to facilitate the next stage? Well, that's an interesting thing.
Very hours.
I like that concept though. I like the question of how quick does your game table, right? And honestly, for some games to learn and play in 40 minutes is okay. For some games, to learn and play in 5 minutes is okay. It's not a conversation about playing in 5 minutes every time. It's a conversation about how long does it take. Always double checking what's the time someone needs to invest before getting something to the table.
Yeah. Like Dungeon Lords, if anyone knows, they have tutorial little missions. So you could start playing the game before you know the full rules. And you're not really playing the full game, but you're playing little mini games, essentially.
Or something like Vampire Masquerade Chapters. Yeah. It gave us the opportunity to learn the rules by playing through solo missions with each one of the base characters.
Yeah.
9 total solo missions taught you all the core mechanics you're looking for. So I was actually playing the game and learning at the same time. I love the concept. I think for some Euros it might be hard to integrate, but I think even little modules where you have the game fully set up, and then as you're reading the rulebook, it's saying hey, take this little sequence of actions. Look at how this puzzle resolves itself.
Yeah, like giving little puzzles, exactly. Yeah. That's what Dungeon Lords does.
Interesting. I almost think there could be a whole separate genre of rule books that do something
Yes.
like that, like solo puzzles or something to facilitate the learning environment.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I did something like that for Kingdom Rush.
Cool.
Like, it's literally separate scenarios to teach the game.
Interesting.
Hasn't been released yet, but they might be.
Cool. Moving on to my number 1. Everyone is going to agree with me on this. Every single rulebook should have aggressive and dedicated, well-written flavor text. Oh no! Say it ain't so. The sheriff of Eureka Springs has been murdered. With no one guarding his gates, ruffians are coming in droves to take advantage of the defenseless town. Is this the end for Eureka Springs? Of course not. That makes me excited to play the game. I love having theme, I love having story, I love having artwork, I love having flavor text that supports the rules that I'm reading. Now, here's the other element of this.
You might be saying what I'm going to say, and I'm going to take credit for this as well.
When you put in flavor text, theme, and environment into the rulebook itself, it helps refine the rules. The game should operate, and in my opinion, a good game should operate in ways that make sense to the theming of the game.
Okay.
And so it helps not only the player attach themselves to the mechanics of your game, but it helps you as a designer and a writer of the rulebook understand why these mechanics actually work within the context of the game environment.
Yeah.
I learn a lot of things through experiential. The one thing I'll pick up on a board game, majorly, is when some mechanic does not integrate accurately into a theme. If I'm spending if I'm feeding people by spending wood and lumber, and there's not a good justification for that,
yeah.
I suddenly have this disconnect in my mind. Now, what were you going to say?
Well, before that, you brought up a good point. I'm going to talk about Dungeon Lords again. Your link of Thematic. So there are rules for the ghosts in that game. It's thematically sound. They're like, they can go through walls because they're ghosts. So that's the rationale for them being able to move through walls. Like, stuff like that, you're not going to forget that.
Yeah.
Why would a ghost not be able to go through a wall?
100%. And if a ghost can't go through a wall, I suddenly, as a player, I'm sitting here going like,
Yeah.
But they can. I mean, like, your rulebook doesn't get to define what ghosts are. Ghosts are, visages of a past life that can totally transport through walls.
Yeah. But I was going to go along with, so Thematic is good, but please make sure that it is clear what is Thematic and what is rules. And also, if you're going to try to claim something's Thematic, as a technical editor as well, I want to know what is actually the rules. But this is good. This is clear. This is Thematic text.
Sure.
When I'm going through here, it's separated out.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes there's blocks of text.
Here you can see, like, in the comment section, what doesn't kill you probably won't make you stronger. I don't necessarily need all this page to be themed, but even little blips like this, golly, these chums are out for blood, that ties me down to the game and lets me feel like I'm having fun while I read the book itself.
Yeah, but now if that was in the targeting section, in this same font,
so if it
that
says,
happens sometimes.
The target for an action can be a single townsfolk, a group of townsfolk, or none at all. What doesn't kill you probably won't make you stronger.
Yeah.
It might get in the way a little bit.
Yeah, because at least for me, I mean, I'm trying to find the rules now.
Yeah.
I want to know where it is.
Sure.
So that's my element, which is kind of goes on along with yours.
It's a good point. What's your next thing? I don't know why I'm moving this off to the side. It can stay right there. What's your number 2?
That was my number 2. Keeping things separated.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying. It kind of like goes with yours. So the Thematic stuff is great, but I don't want to have it in the rules. Like, basically, have an outline of the rules like this, but don't mix. So if somebody wants to find rules, and essentially it makes it easier to find things.
I will argue, and this doesn't work for everyone.
Well, let's see though.
If I want to see if I can find a good place that I would have to.
It might be done well, and I might.
But there are absolutely some elements in here that are thematic and rules mixed together.
If they mix together and they help.
And you can only endure so much.
Okay.
Not dying is hard work. Over time, your circumstances will grind you down, and if you don't do something about it, you'll eventually die. Or, as the game presents it, become unendingly unconscious. You and your team will increase in distress, be affected with strange new behaviors and conditions, and, in time, will simply be unable to go on. Support each other and mitigate your distress and complete your tasks before your endurance collapses. If you don't, it'll be the last thing you ever fail at. So, that is a whole paragraph to basically say, be very careful, you might die. But it's thematically integrated, and so it is a conceptual overview.
Yeah, which is great. That kind of stuff I love that kind of overview.
Yeah. So there is a bit of a blurring the line, but I will agree with you. When you're on the brass tacks rules, don't put superfluous in. When you're in the middle, conceptual, going towards rules,
Yes.
add in some layers, but make it clear what parts are indicating what you're looking out for. Like here, I know that I'm going to be, increase in distress. Distress is now a keyword that I'm optimized for. The language is going to be the same between the rules and the theme. And then, as we get back to the very front of this, when you're talking about the actual flavor text, make that not something that people are looking in for rules or keywords or cues.
Yeah, and I guess it's good to say too. I was basically in the mindset of Euro games when I was saying all that too, but in a thematic game, makes more sense to have more thematic text
That's
as
fair.
well.
That's fair.
I was thinking like a...
Okay.
Yeah.
My next one, and I don't know that I'll have a good example. One of the best examples that I can think of is actually a game called Sniper Elite. I
did a little bit on that, so maybe I can't talk about that.
We'll see. I love when a rulebook understands how the players are going to be experiencing the game that is in front of them and takes the time to bold, indicate, graphic bubble, or pop off to the side little hints or areas that are going to be hard for you to play, even if the publisher's spending a ton of time, hired a professional to go through and refine the rulebook. There are still going to be elements of gameplay that do become confusing for players that they have to double check the rulebook for. Try to indicate that, try to find that through playtesting, and once you think your rulebook is as good as it can be, take the time to make little areas pop out and I don't know if there's a good example in here, but make little areas pop out. So like here, we have bold text, for instance. Use bold text. Use different color text. Like in Frosthaven, everything that is different from Gloomhaven is actually in a blue or a separated text.
And that kind of thing is wonderful.
And that's important because a lot of people are going to be coming with the preconceptions of Gloomhaven in their mind. And then something like Sniper Elite, there's a whole run down the side column of that rulebook that says, hey, if you've already read this page, this is what you need to know. If you know this, awesome. If you don't know this, you're in trouble. That type of stuff, that type of thought process to not only the intro walking into a game, but then also the experience that's going to be happening as someone sitting at the table playing the game is really important.
Yeah, that sidebar is good.
Yeah. What's your number 3?
Player aid.
Okay. Yes.
Like, come on. Oh, man.
Player aid in the rulebook or player aid out of the rulebook?
Everybody needs something.
Yes.
I don't care, because...
Can we just make that a rule for publishers?
I don't even
Everybody
care if it's
needs
just
something.
Text. There's going to be a structure to a game, hopefully. If you don't have a clear structure, maybe that's kind of like two things mixed in one. You need a clear structure. Everyone should have that structure so they could look at it. Like, okay, this does this, we're going to go through these things. So, as a teacher, I'm thinking about ways to make teaching the game easier. Everyone has this player aid, they could look at it. The teacher teaching the game is referencing the things. So they have something to latch onto. It's an educational principle. I guess maybe that's only obvious to because I've studied it for years, but you agree.
Insanely frustrated by games that don't have a good player aid. Yeah. Or, forbid, you go to BGG and the community, someone like you has taken the time to design good quality player aids. I'm sorry, looking at you, what is it? Black Rose Wars. Looking at you, Black Rose Wars.
That didn't have a player aid?
Why did the community have to develop and design your player aid for you? Very offensive.
That's a huge game.
Massive game. You almost it should have a player aid. Every game, from code names up, needs some type of reference material for the players at the table.
Yeah, even if it's just a little card. If we're talking code names, sure. Capstone did great with their Siege of Vienna. We got a whole player aid. You could learn the game pretty much just from that.
Okay, my number 4. I believe that every publisher should spend some degree of time either taking educational classes or watching reviewers and producing their own version of how-to-play guides. Shut Up, Sit Down has an incredible video on how to actually teach a board game, and one of the things that I see rule books miss so often is they get bogged down into the details of rules structure and formatting based off of how they made their appendix. Or, start with a heavy setup, 5 pages of setup before ever getting to the other elements of the game. And it's just not how we as players learn. A lot of experienced rulebook readers, a lot of experienced board gamers will actually digest a rulebook based off of flipping beyond that how to set up section all the way to the win-loss conditions, then the flow of play, then the nuance on specific turn order, then maybe the how to set up area. So I'm not advocating removing the how to set up section. I am advocating for structure your rulebook in a way that is intuitively the way that you would approach teaching the game if you were sitting down at the table and trying to get your friends up and running. Start off with a page of maybe a little bit of flavor text. Follow up with the win-loss conditions, the overview and the objective. Then get some of the basic components out onto the table so we're familiar with what we're seeing, and then start walking us through. Start with the flow of the game, the experience that's going to be had. Zoom in on a player board, have them move some pieces around, zoom out onto the major tableau, have them figure out how these systems work, and then loop it all back into the win-loss conditions and the actual format of the game. It's not going to be easy for every single game, but I do think purposeful attention needs to be paid to how does my game, not in a rulebook form, but in a sitting across the table from other players format, how do people actually teach it to other people?
Yeah, that's a great aspect because not everyone's a teacher.
Yeah.
So your rulebook should have that guidance there.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're trying to play a game, not trying to...
I'm not trying to read a rule book.
Yeah. I like reading the rule books because I'm trying to learn
everyone's grateful for what you do. If you do your job the best it can possibly be done, no one notices your thing. Like, if your rule book is well done, everyone just plays the game. If your rule book's horrible, everyone's angry at you. There's going to be no praise.
Because they're going to just say the game's great. So a lot of times when you... Like Gloomhaven, if it didn't have these things... If this was a horrible rulebook, I don't think everybody would like Gloomhaven.
Yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be hard pressed. People have to work their way through.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
My number 4? We're on number 5? I went first?
You went first. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is terms. If you keep consistent terms, make it easy to find what the terms are, make it easy to find what they mean. And
consistency in terms is major.
Consistency, yes. So perhaps if you're going to use a term that is not normal, like breakthrough. Breakthrough could mean anything in any game. But see here, breakthrough is right here. Perhaps if there is that might be the full rules for it, but having a page number just to, like an index, essentially, or a table of contents, one of those need to be there, I feel like. This has it. Yeah. Right there. This is wonderful.
So I do have one question. I like some thematic keywords. I think some thematic like oil canister instead of action cube, for me, makes sense if we're in a post-apocalyptic, driving game. Yeah. However, I do find that sometimes games get bogged down with their own inventive new words as opposed to using classic reference phrases. Yeah. And so for me, my preference would always be if there is a standard reference word that the industry kind of has consistent about around most games or comparable games in your genre, use the standard reference word that is comparable in your genre, and then explain through flavor text and story what that standard... If I say action cube, that's okay. I might thematically also learn that the action cube is one of your, workers who's joining your army and going to forces against the goblin hordes. That's fine. When it comes to the actual, flow of play, a Olga blog is much harder to remember than an action cube.
Yeah. And for an example, in Horseless Carriage, something's called a niche. What's a niche?
No idea.
But if I told you... pretend you didn't know the game. Square.
Sure.
Do you know what a square is?
Yeah. Know what a square is.
If you look at that, so sometimes if you use just a simple term, especially for a heavy euro, that could be very beneficial.
Yeah, I understand the desire to make things thematic, and I do like thematic references when it is important to know them, when they add to the game, but sometimes they do take away. So work your way through that, double check with the community. They have to make sense, they have to be easy to remember, or you should default to something that's more commonplace in the industry of your choice. Okay, my last one is going to be separated books. Now this kind of works with your rules card, but I think, and I'm a big advocate for, if we grab something like...
Well, we've talked about this a lot already.
You've talked about that a few times already.
What do we got? We got one of the biggest improvements in gaming history of the company and rulebooks.
Let's talk about something like Burn Cycle here. We have the floor plan book. We have the rules reference book. We have the learn to play book.
And the bathtub cards.
Unless you're going to do something like Kingdom Death, because of course Kingdom Death can do absolutely nothing wrong. Unless you're going to do something like a luxury hardcover bound book full of beautiful artwork and the rules at the front and the reference guides at the back, where this is what you want to have in your hand, if you're doing soft cover, if you're doing something like this that's going to be passed around and thrown around quite a lot and not be used for the entire duration of the game, I don't want everything to be together in one. I mean, imagine if this was, which some publishers do, this was one binding.
I'm just dreading thinking about that because
Learn to Play guide gets me up and running. Rules reference is where I go after I already know the game, but I need those specific nuanced details. And the floor plan is my structure. This is my setup. This is the scenario by scenario.
Yeah.
Now, for smaller rule books, if your rule book's within the 50 and under pages range, I'm okay.
50 and under page?
I'm okay
Yeah.
with some things being contained depending on the type of game it is. But I want to pay attention to what type of content is in the hands of my players when my players are playing the game. This is needed when you first start. This is needed when you're figuring out the game. After you've already figured it out, I don't want those other components. I don't want those other pages in my hand. I don't have to sort through them. This is so much easier to go through because it's designed for one specific thing. It's designed to answer nuanced questions during gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. And have that player aid.
Yeah. Yeah, I want that print player aid.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Let us know. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? What are your thoughts around this conversation? Either way, we are hoping to continue designing, improving, and working on rulebooks from this time on.
And as always, thanks for watching.
I don't think that's our catchphrase.
Oh, wait.
But I'll take it.